Our party planner Vona is ready to go. You can play party planner Vona on curve. That's just like incredible. Oh, and actually, I think, yeah, we just have lethal here. Something I realized like halfway through. I was like, oh wait, it just has lethal. Yeah. So matchup against Warrior is actually pretty good. But Vona is like basically 6 mana 12/12 in a way. Which is pretty crazy. They just concede. Yeah. Hey guys, how's it going? It's Maestro and we're here with a deck overview of the new Tourist Warlock from the Perils in Paradise expansion. So the Tourist Warlock card uses the legendary Summoner Dark Marrow, which has this Death Rattle ability, which triggers your Death Rattles twice and destroys your minions. After you play a Death Rattle minion, destroy it. And I tried a lot of different like lists for kind of this Death Knight Warlock tourist deck, and I had a couple different versions. Even this version that I'm showing you right now wasn't really the final version that I settled on. So even the games that I have recorded for you guys, I still think there's like a better list for this. I'm going to show you multiple versions. But basically the idea of this deck is sort of like a Pain Warlock, because we have cards like these Party Fiend, as well as Malefic Rook and Blood Treant. So these cards are just like these really explosive kind of aggressive minions that come at a cost of health for your hero. In order to kind of compensate for the health that we lose from playing these minions, we have the new card, Party Planner Vona. Hopefully this card can be in our hand as we are taking damage on our turns, because if you don't actually have this card in your hand, none of the damage you take on your turns counts towards it, I think. So this is one way we compensate for that. We also have Infernal, which is 4 mana 6/6 with taunt, so it's already good for its good stats for the cost. And hopefully we're at a low enough health where the battle cry is beneficial and it actually will restore our health to 15 rather than reduce it to 15. It's very aggressive. There's actually a lot going on here. Some of the Death Rattle stuff is like these Bucket of Soldiers, which I think is kind of cool, with Eliza Goreblade, because if you have like a really wide board of minions, you're definitely going to feel like a pretty large effect from Eliza Goreblade, and Bucket of Soldiers will generate like a pretty wide board of minions. Horizon's Edge is just really good if you have a wide board of minions, and you can just trade those minions in. And we also have AFK, which is kind of a new card, because this works really well with Bucket of Soldiers, because for example you could trade in the Bucket of Soldiers and it spawns like all 5 of the 1/1s, and then play AFK and that will buff your whole board. So that's another really strong play. And then just Corpsicle, because we're gonna again be creating that wide board of minions, generating lots of corpses, so a lot of value here as well. In our ETC we have the beloved Hearthstone Brew, which I think is an incredible card. We do again win a game with it, which I have for you guys, and as well as Leroy and Symphony. I don't really think Symphony is that great of a option here, so I'm actually gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take this out. We're gonna put in Seaside Giant because of the location that we have. It's really easy to activate, and this could potentially just be like a 0 mana 8/8, which is very good. And something else that I saw some other aggro decks including, which I thought was really good, is this Sea Giant, because again we're creating a really wide board, so hopefully we'll be able to get a really good discounted Sea Giant. But generally, that's kind of the idea of this deck. Basically, very aggressively create a wide board, and then just try and aggro out the opponent in combination with our Corpsicles. In the late game, we do have Hearthstone Brew as well as Sargeras. So this is the list that I have that's in the videos of the games I'm about to show you guys. I tried this other list. I think it's a little bit more solid. You don't have to pay health in order to play minions, which can actually be a pretty dangerous play if you're going up against like a deck that has a lot of tempo, because then they can be the ones that actually aggro you out. But something that's different is that we have a little bit more of a death rattle theme with this version of the deck. So we have Brittlebone Buccaneer to give Reborn to our death rattle minions, and then we also have Nerubian Egg and Doomsayer here. So basically the idea is that the Doomsayer will not only act as a way to control the board, but it will hopefully trigger our Nerubian Egg and Bucket of Soldiers a little bit better. We have Ghoul's Knight, because again this card works really well with Eliza, but also the Sea Giant and Ziliax and Horizon's Edge. Those are like kind of the main differences with this deck. Just overall, we still have like Party Planner Vona here, but it's just I feel like it's a little more solid and kind of more interesting, because we see like kind of these cards that you don't really see as much. So I'm going to include both lists in the description, so feel free to try whichever list you think is better. Feel free to take these ideas and tinker around with them yourself. Let me know in the comments actually kind of what your experience is with these different listings, and if you have any suggestions. I love to see what kind of ideas that we can all come up with. So I do have a few games to show you guys. Hope you enjoy. Alright, this is our first game against Dragon Druid. Could be Reno Dragon Druid as well. But here we see like kind of how this deck does against aggressive tempo matchups. And because we have some pretty strong early game cards like Party Fiend and Malefic Rook, we do manage to do okay. It's kind of funny, sometimes people will like instantly concede like once they see Party Fiend, and it's not like, I don't feel like aggro Warlock is really, at least in my like kind of place in the ladder right now, it's not really a super common deck. Yeah, I mean there's definitely ways, like you're not like guaranteed like a win, of course, even if you have Party Fiend on turn 1. Just helps get you a lot of good chip damage in. So if you can play like Malefic Rook together with Fearless Flamebringer, that's a really great option. And we get Eliza down, which always feels good. So hopefully we can have Eliza trigger, and then the Bucket of Soldiers will be really good. And they do have a very nice minion for us to just like trade into, which you always love to see. So we're gonna trade with Eliza. And we're actually gonna hold on a little bit because we're not gonna proc the Bucket of Soldiers just yet. I mean, we totally could have just procced it there actually. It's a little bit of a misplay, but it's okay. But like the Fearless Flame Juggler there is an 8/7 for 2 mana, right? That's almost like a giant. And it's because the Malefic Rook, it attacked our hero for 6 damage. And so that's a +6/6 for the Fearless Flame Juggler. We're still gonna hold off on the Bucket of Soldiers a little bit. We're not afraid of any Doomkin. Our party planner Vona is ready to go. You can play party planner Vona on curve. That's just like incredible. They kind of have a last ditch attempt here. Unfortunately, it will not be, or fortunately for me, unfortunately for the opponent, it will not be enough. So that was probably like the ideal game, kind of the opening game, show you guys how this deck operates at an ideal level. I will say that in terms of matchups, this deck does really good against control, and it doesn't really do well against other tempo aggressive decks like an elemental deck that has a lot of tempo. This deck will not do well against, especially because all of the minions in this deck require health to play, so you're already putting yourself in a vulnerable position to get like aggroed out by like a lamplighter or something very quickly with those types of decks. However, with control decks, this deck has a really good like score against for some interesting reason. I think partly it's because of Bucket of Soldiers, right? So it's not easy for like the warrior to just play Bellowing Flames here because it will just trigger Bucket of Soldiers. So having these Death Rattle minions makes some of the warrior's control options a little more difficult. And then if you can do like Cursed Souvenir, yeah, into the Bucket of Soldiers, then you can, it now has the ability to attack, which is very good. Alright, so the reason why like I mentioned this deck doesn't do well against other tempo decks is like, if you see my life total, I'm at 15 already on turn 5, and like the opponent has not even like attacked me at all, right? So, but because warrior just has like a super late game plan, like, and they're not gonna like really put a lot of aggression on you in the early game, it gives you the ability to kind of take more risk with your life total like I am doing now. A bit unfortunate timing on those death rattles. Yeah, and we have like 10 corpses, which is great for our corpsicles because we're basically just gonna start like sending corpsicles to face here. Yeah, so you can, that's basically like, if you have 2 corpsicles, that's basically like a fireball like every single turn that you can get back. And they're at 9 health already, so we're getting pretty close. Not totally in the clear yet. But that location also helps a lot. Yeah. And then I would just do like double corpsicle to the face once again. Yeah. This is very much like a Frost Death Knight play, to just like spam these corpsicles. That location is doing a lot of... Oh, and actually, I think, yeah, we just have lethal here. Something I realized like halfway through. I was like, oh wait, it just has lethal. Yeah. So matchup against Warrior is actually pretty good. This isn't the only game. I had like a few other games against Warrior. I forget what type of deck this one is. I think they were trying to go for some sort of combo, but they weren't able to get it, like they weren't able to pull it off by the time like I had already won. So getting Party Fiend on turn 1 is always really good. And you pretty much like, you don't really want to trade your minions in with this deck. Like unless like they have some sort of minion. Well, there's like a few exceptions where you would want to trade. Number 1 is if like they have a minion that's like a really pressing strategic concern, like a gold panner, you know, that's a big problem. But right now, like that Cult Neophyte, it's just a 3-2, like that's it. So it's not really anything that concerns me right now, which is why I'm just shoving damage face. Usually better to like keep your minions on board as well. And if you can force the opponent to make unfavorable trades, like here. So because they traded their Cult Neophyte into one of my 1/1s, that also saved me from getting 3 damage to the face. I'm gonna be a little bit careful about my life total here because it's at 14, which is pretty low.
How long can you hold your
Luckily, the opponent is gonna trade, which is always I'm happy to see it when they're trading, because then they're not going for my face. Okay, trigger our location. And I think Vona is online for us. But Vona is like basically 6 mana 12/12 in a way, which is pretty crazy. They just concede. Yeah. Another thing with Vona is you want to make sure that you have like minions in your hand so that the Ouroboros Death Rattle can transfer to those minions. Because if you don't have any minions in your hand, the Ouroboros Death Rattle is just gonna like kind of whiff. But usually there's enough minions in this deck where that isn't really a problem. Okay, we see another warrior. So for example, like the Razorfin Rockstar, that's a minion that has like a pretty big like strategic threat because they can generate a lot of armor from that minion. Luckily they don't have like a bash right now, so we are able to clear it. So anytime I see Warrior forging something, in the back of my mind I'm just like, is it Bellowing Flames or Sanitize? But if you see Eliza in your hand, like you basically want to play her as soon as possible, like coining her out, just so you can get the most value as possible from her. Okay, it clears their minion, which is nice. Okay, so the good side of this Aftershocks is that it does activate the Eliza. So again, we get to do the really cool like Malefic Rook Fearless Flame Juggler combo here, right? So a lot of stats for 5 mana. Like how much stats is that in total? 14, 13, like a 14, 13 for 5 mana. They do clear it, but you know, it just kind of shows there's a lot of aggression in this deck. Okay, keep tapping the location. Start spending our corpses. So the bucket of soldiers is very good because we've already triggered Eliza or OUROBOROS. Yeah. So we got 2 rush guys, which is very good. We somehow get pretty lucky with all of these yeah, with all of the cannon shots there. Another option could have been like I could have tapped. Actually, no. I think next turn I'm kind of planning this out in my head. Is I'm gonna tap and then play Party Planner Vona. But they're at 7 health right now. So you know, they're in a pretty difficult spot. Like, they're constantly having to control my board. We got a pretty nice hand here. So we're gonna tap and then just play Vona. I haven't seen a Zilliax from the opponent yet, so that's always good. And I'm thinking like pretty much Sargeras is the best play next turn because it has or the Ouroboros Death Rattle, and because it's like Sargeras. So the opponent here, either they have Reno or they don't have Reno. Like if they have Reno, I'm cooked either way. So I kind of want to just pray that they don't have Reno and then try to create a wide board, the most like threatening board as possible, and hopefully like they don't have an answer to it, which they didn't. All right, this is our last game against Tourist Warrior. This is a bit of a longer game. We do get to play Hearthstone Brew, which is always exciting to see. Honestly, like I feel like that card has done so much for my deck building because it makes like aggro and mid-range decks viable to play, because like a big problem, you know, beforehand was that aggro and mid-range decks would run out of gas in the late game and get like outvalued and, you know, by these control decks. But Hearthstone Brew basically lets you refill your entire hand, gives you like a new strategic game plan going into the late game, and a lot of times the Hearthstone Brew hands are pretty competitive. So like even against like modern decks in standard right now. So they do have a Needle Rock Totem here, which again would be a pretty big like strategic advantage if they're able to get a lot of value off of it. But I think like I'm just thinking ahead. Like I really want to play Bucket of Soldiers and then Eliza because like that's the best strategic plan for me. And if they overdraw, like that's totally fine as well. Okay, so they didn't play the forged version. I think the opponent's gonna overdraw one here. But I want to get Horizon's Edge down because I have Bucket of Soldiers, which, you know, will generate a super wide board when it dies. And I have Ziliax, which is always good to see. Yeah, I think I pretty much like have always just been taking Hearthstone brew from the ETC.
I can hold no more cards.
So AFK is really good to see here. Because once the Bucket of Soldiers is procced, like AFK is just a really good play. And even though I'm at 9 health, like because this is not what's the word? Yeah, because it's not a tempo deck, I can take a pretty big risk with my health. So I went down to 3, but then the Infernal restored it back to 15. Okay, we get a huge board of these soldiers. And I think I like somehow like figure out that the Pop Guard is the better play here. Okay, we just want to get everything in there. Chew through all the opponent's armor here. I do manage to get all my damage in, thankfully. Sometimes you have to kind of schedule your plays around the shots of Horizon Edge because like the shots didn't go where I wanted them to. I kind of had to rework my play a little bit. Okay, we got our AFK down. Something you want to be careful about when you're playing Bucket of Soldiers is like if you already have a wide board and they only clear your Bucket of Soldiers, but in this case they cleared all my minions, so there was enough room for all of my 5/1/1s. You want to make sure that you have enough room for all of your 1/1s when they pop up. Got our Ziliax. and the Corpsicle. Something that I like about Corpsicle is that, like, since it returns to your hand at the end of your turn, like, you can play your Corpsicle and then you can even play Hearthstone Brew, and the Corpsicle will still come back to your hand. Right, so even though this warrior is throwing like all of these control options at me, actually I think we just play Sargeras here, because I think like we've already seen some duplicates from this deck, so they shouldn't be able to play like any Reno Highlander cards, basically. Like, even though they have Brand, like, it doesn't actually trigger. I think this deck must have been a really old list, because it was before that they made the Highlander requirement to be like your original deck build. Yeah, so if we play Hearth here, we'll get back the Corpsicle. We do get the Rogue Hearthstone Brew hand, which I don't think I've ever really gotten before. So I'm still trying to figure out like how this hand works. For those that know, this is just like a mill Rogue hand. And I honestly think like I probably could have like milled them out, like I could have milled them out like here maybe, but yeah, I wasn't exactly sure how this deck worked. Yeah, I probably could have just actually, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have. Yeah. Oh well, it's fine. Cause like the thing with this deck is you want to make sure you have room in your hand once you bounce the Cold Light Oracle. Because if you don't have room in your hand when you bounce the Cold Light Oracle, like, it's just going to get destroyed.
I can't have more cards than this.
So we've kind of changed our strategic game plan, so now we're on the mill plan. We do have a bit of a fatigue advantage over our opponent. And basically, as long as we survive this coming turn, we should pretty much be good.
I have no more cards.
And they actually come really close. Like, seeing that they got the Rag on the first Discover, if they had gotten like 2 Ragnaroses somehow, by a lucky chance, like, that would have ended me. I think you want to be careful here that, like, I don't mill myself out into fatigue because I have a lower life total. But because I have enough of a fatigue buffer, it's okay. Yep.